Hey, Dr. Nina. I am your host of You, Your Body, and Your Health. Thank you for joining me this afternoon on a Friday, the first Friday in November. I am very excited about this conversation we're going to have today because November is National Diabetes Month. And this particular condition is so near and dear to me that I'm very big on its recognition as well as awareness. My grandmother succumbed to complications from type 2 diabetes just shy of her 60th birthday, and she had it in her 40s. My mother was too diagnosed in her 40s, and she suffered through an amputation in her 50s. So my mother does have an amputation, but thankfully, she successfully manages diabetes today. Now, I'm sure you all have your own stories, your own personal stories of how diabetes has impacted you. We all do. You may have it, or you may have prediabetes, or someone you love, someone you know may have it. Do me a favor, share your thoughts in the comments box because you're certainly not alone. So, share your thoughts, some of your insights, some of your, ideas about diabetes, and maybe even some of the stuff you want to know. We will cover a couple of topics this month pertaining to diabetes, but this one in particular is focused on physical activity. And I'll tell you why in a bit. But before I get started, tell me where you could tune it in from. Tell me, again, what you want to learn today. I want to know some of that. And as we get into the show, we got a lot to talk about, a whole lot to talk about. So I want to make sure that I get enough time. And as always, make sure you're asking plenty of questions. As those questions come up, I may not get to those questions right away, but I will certainly get to them sometime offline. And as always, you could visit me on social media channels and continue any conversation we start at That Salad Lady. Instagram's a little different. I'll put that link up later. It's that.salad.lady, but you can always have a conversation with me there at any of those That Salad Lady channels. So let's talk about the statistics because we have to. Sometimes statistics about diabetes, they just hit home. You know what I mean? And sometimes you hear about it, but you don't really think about it until you hear those numbers. 10.5% of American adults now, this is adults, they have diabetes. That's about 34 million people. That is a lot of people. And this is the bigger one. 34.5% of people have pre-diabetes. That's about 88 million people. Now, this pre-diabetes can be unknown or known. So many people, about 88 million people, are actually walking around with pre-diabetes and they may not even know it. And I'll give you something else because this is going to lead into our aging successfully topic. But almost 30% of those people are 65 years old or older. So as you can see, this is very widespread as we age. And 1.5 million people get diagnosed every year. This is a widespread disease. And you know what? Given its prevalence, you would actually think that there's no cure, that it's not preventable. In many cases, it is preventable. And we're going to talk about that. Now, you probably hear a lot about how exercise, or excuse me, I talk ahead, but how healthy eating plays a role in, in good nutrition and, diet plays such a role in the prevention and management of diabetes. But truth is, exercise plays an equally important role. And we're going to talk about the unique effects of exercise. It's not just about weight loss, because a lot of people think in the context of, oh, it's what, exercise helps you lose weight, therefore it helps diabetes. It's so much bigger than that when it comes to exercise. And we're going to talk about that throughout the show and bring those questions in. I want to reiterate before we even jump into the meat of the topic that this show is all about aging successfully, but more specifically, improving your health span. This is the number of years within your lifespan that you are healthy. Now, I told you already, the statistics are there. Diabetes is becoming more widespread and dangerous as a leading cause of blindness and disability and heart disease. And even among adolescents, I am seeing and working with more and more kids, 14, 15, 12, who are developing type 2 diabetes, which we'll talk about, not the childhood diabetes, which what was previously known as a childhood diabetes, but type 2. So we're going to talk about that. And in our Aging Successfully segment, which I always have at the end of the show, we're going to focus on that advancing age. And it's kind of a conundrum because physical inactivity and unwanted weight gain, that tends to grow with advancing age, and both are risk factors for prediabetes and diabetes. So we're going to talk about strategies for lowering your risk and therefore aging successfully. So I really want to talk about that. And I'm seeing a good point with diet and exercise and good mental health. Absolutely, Zelma. And I'm going to touch on that a bit as we get to the show. Now, I'm going to give you put a visual up here. If you watch this show from its start, and I'm happy you did. If you did, you probably saw this figure. This particular figure is really a great way to look at health span. I asked you during the first show to give me a number of where you think you are. So comfort zone being the middle. That means, I'm not sick, I'm not as healthy as I want to be. Somewhere around 5, you would be in that situation. I gave myself an 8. I'm in good health. I exercise regularly. I think my diet is pretty good. I know a lot based on my profession. And, I just feel good about myself, but I can always get better. And always getting better means approaching that high level of wellness. Now, I put this up today, but before I talk about why I put this up today, go ahead and give me where your what you think your number is now. Some of you gave me 4s and 5s in the beginning. If you're here, if you saw this before, put a number up in the comments box. Tell me where you think you are now. Obviously, none of us are 0. We're here. We're not dead. But where are we going? As far as our current status of health. Not being ill or thinking we're ill or thinking we're well. Where are we? And also tell me where you want to be. Like I said, I'm an 8, so I always want to go towards a 10. I put this up because disease, poor health, these are generally associated with disease, diabetes included. So if you have diabetes, you may consider yourself somewhere at a 4 or 5 because you have a disease. Now, if you're taking insulin to manage your diabetes, which we talk about, you may think that you're in a 2 as a poor health or something like that. But what I want you to get from this is no matter where you are on this continuum, you can always make an effort to go towards higher level wellness. If you're a 2, you can shoot for a 4. If you're a 5, you can shoot for a 6. So again, tell me where you are in those comments. Tell me where you think you are now and where you want to be. Because the key takeaway from this figure is having diabetes is not a death sentence. Having prediabetes is not a death sentence. You can improve your health and go towards that increasing health span no matter where you are on this continuum. Remember that as we get into this talk. Now, what I already kind of alluded to type 2 diabetes, but are there other types of diabetes? I'm sure you may know a little bit of this. There are actually 3 main types that I'm going to highlight here. You have a type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, which is the one we're going to talk about as it's the most widespread, and you have gestational diabetes, which happens in cases of pregnancy. So I'm going to bring a visual up because some of these one of these is unpreventable. 2 of these are preventable. And the beautiful thing, though, is that all 3 are controllable. So you can control all 3 of these, type 1, type 2, and gestational. Now, the onset of type 2 diabetes is linked to your family history. We all know that. If your family member has diabetes, you are more likely, or you have an increased risk of getting the condition. That family history and that genetics, we can't deny, as in most diseases, that, that plays a role. But lifestyle itself plays the greatest role, especially in type 2, that one that's preventable. And to a certain extent, gestational, because, increased weight gain during pregnancy, poor diet during pregnancy, these things can all trigger gestational diabetes, especially if you're at risk. And I also want to emphasize that of all the diabetes, type 2, being the most preventable is also the most widespread. 90 to 95% of cases of type 2 diabetes or of diabetes are type 2, right? Whereas type 1, that's the onset, the one that generally happens when you're born. Well, that one is about 5 to 10%, and gestational being a 1 to 3%. So I want you to think about the lifestyle factors playing the biggest role. That's diet, that's activity, that's stress levels, as Zelma mentioned earlier. We talked a whole lot about nutrition in the last 4 weeks, a lot. We've talked about all the macronutrients and many plans for eating well. And we also talked about stress. If you recall, we talked about that stress belly in my earlier show, stress belly and how that can trigger diabetes related symptoms. I'm going to zero in with the rest of my time on physical activity because in a nutshell, independent of anything else, physical activity has inherent blood glucose, that's blood sugar lowering effects, and it supports weight loss and stress management as well, as I talked about during the stress show. So the key takeaway that I want you to get, because I'm about to put another figure up, is that not engaging in enough activity triggers elevated blood sugar, and it influences all of the other factors associated with diabetes. Hence, the need to always be physically active forever and ever and ever. Always be physically active. And I have to emphasize this because these diseases have been around for a long time, but if you notice, they're becoming increasingly more widespread the lazier we get as a people, and we are lazy as a people. I'm not going to sit here and kind of sugarcoat that. Technology, the world itself has made us extremely physically lazy. And so we have to think about steps to moving more. And I don't just mean that exercise session you put in. It's really great. I got my exercise session in this morning. I get in at least an hour a day, but that's not enough to keep that blood glucose low. And we're going to talk about why. So shoot me questions if you have it. Shoot me those questions. I'm seeing a lot of great feedback, especially from Lorraine, thinking it was a death sentence when first diagnosed, but now, she seems to be doing good at a 6. So let's go with this other visual I'm going to put up here. The types of physical activity. Now, I just said something about exercise. I just said, next one, please. We kind of talked about that. I just talked about exercise, right? I talked about it not being enough. These are different types of physical activity. You have leisure and recreational physical activity. This is the stuff we do in routine life: standing, walking, commuting to and from school if we walk, if we ride a bike, household chores, occupational work, getting up to work. Think about all those 4 and think about what you're not doing. Standing and light walking. How much do you do that, right? Especially with COVID and us kind of being inside, how much are you doing that? Commuting to and from work and school. Are you in a car? Are you on a bike? Are you walking? Household chores. How many of us get help cleaning up our house? We don't even do that anymore, right? Occupational work. Most of us are sitting for work now. So where's the leisure and recreational? This is any type of movement that causes the body to use energy. If you're moving, glucose is moving. But then there's exercise training. This is planned exercise. Any type of activity that's purposeful, that's planned and structured and repetitive. We get on our clothes, we go to the gym in an effort to exercise. We work out, we get on a machine that's monotonous or a class that's rhythmic, and we go. Well, that's further classified in all kind of different types, aerobic strength and all of that. But, that's just one part of the equation. So the key takeaway from a diabetes prevention and management standpoint, it's not only the amount of time you spend exercising. Are you listening here? Listen to my words carefully. Look at my face. Let me take this down. Look at my face. And I really want to emphasize this to you. I'm going to fill you in on a little secret. It is not, from a diabetes perspective or health in general, it is not the amount of time you spend exercising that's only a benefit. Gold star for us who did our hour or even 30 minutes of exercise. It's the amount of time you spend not moving or moving and not sitting. So the amount of time that you're actually on your feet and moving around is what really influences diabetes, the prevention and management of it. In case you didn't notice, I'm in a different place than I was, that I usually am. I am actually using my standing desk right now, and this is how I work most of the day. So I spend a lot of my day personally standing, even after working out and everything, because that's what it's all about. It's all about moving. I'm going to throw another visual up, but I'm going to go through it pretty fast because it's some key takeaways and I want to make sure I get to these tips. It's some key takeaways that I really want you to get from it. Exercise influences so many factors besides weight loss that in order to understand why I'm telling you to move more and emphasizing that the most is because if you're moving, I said it again, I'll say it again. If you're moving, glucose is moving. Anytime you move, it's like an insulin-like effect. Think about that. It's like an insulin-like effect. So whenever your muscles contract during any activity, your cells are able to take up glucose and it uses it for energy, whether you have insulin or not. My mother, that lady I talked about who has diabetes and does not have a leg, my mother exercised so much on her ergometer, her arm ergometer that I brought her, that she actually had to have shoulder surgery because she was using it so much. But because I told her, move more. I don't care if you're overweight. I don't care if you don't have a leg. Do what you can, because if you're moving, glucose is moving and you're not relying on that insulin as much. And it's another effect. The more the more you move, the more glucose transporters you get. This is the stuff that gets blood sugar out of the bloodstream and into the cells. It's like a ferry. So when you're exercising, your body produces more glucose transporters so you can get that stuff out of your bloodstream. Then there's something called mitochondria. This is a very complex science term to basically say that this is the thing. The more mitochondria you have, the more food is used for energy. So if you have more mitochondria, which are increased with exercise, you're burning more calories in the foods you eat. That's fuel. And it also preserves inherent pancreatic functions. If you have type 1 diabetes and your pancreatic function is impaired altogether, you can benefit from the insulin-like effects of exercise. So there's no excuse here. And overall, I'm sure you've heard about this. Exercise itself over time, forever and ever, increases insulin sensitivity overall. So your muscles are better able to use any insulin to take up glucose, not just during activity, but also after activity. As a matter of fact, physical activity can lower blood glucose for up to 24 hours or more, depending on how hard you work out after your workouts. Oh, that was a mouthful. What do you think about that? Give me a fist bump if we're for exercising and moving more. Give me a fist bump. Let me know. I want you to see that. You see all that? So the key takeaway is when you move more, so does glucose. So let's move more. So what do? Put in the comments box. Tell me your favorite form of cardio. I want to, because we already know that, right? Exercise. We're gonna talk about exercise, and structured exercise is nice, but I like my biking. I can't run as much. I actually have arthritis, but I was an avid runner, a marathoner, and I still get it in when I can. But I do more, fun, kind of easy activities these days, hiking, walking, that sort of thing. So here are some points I want you to ponder, because it's not just about exercise, as I said. Move more and sit less. That's something we can control, folks. I'm standing. My standing desk costs about the same amount as a nice chair. And I'm standing and I'm working most of the time because the work I do requires a lot of sitting or being on a computer. So I stand as much as I can. Get up, move more. And know that even if you can't engage in structured exercise, doing something is always better than doing nothing at all, but we got to keep doing it. The more you sit, the less glucose is moving and the greater your risk, period. And our life is not a good, or the way things normally are, it ain't going to help you. It's not going to help you. You got to do it yourself. You have to take initiative. Now, I was going to get all into the 150 minutes of activity, blah, 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 everything you hear, but I'm going to just sum it up and make it real, real simple. Every day, whether you exercised or not, do you hear this? Whether you engaged in your jog or Tabata workouts, Yolanda, I love that. Dancing, Carthel, if you love group fitness, group exercise, all that stuff is great. But take a brisk walk. Even if you this is not the exercise session, take a brisk walk every day. Maintain an average walking pace of about 3 to 3.5 miles per hour. That's like a little faster than you would normally walk if you're like just walking to class or, walking from one end of your job to another. Make it a little faster. Put in a hill or two if you can. And do this for at least 20 to 30 minutes a week. That's my challenge to you. Number one challenge. I got 3 of them. That's my number one challenge. Do that. Whether you have diabetes or pre-diabetes or you don't have it at all, do that. If you do not have a limb, like my mother, put those arms to work. Do some chair exercises. There's a ton of stuff online. Here's number 2. Get some weightlifting in. Weightlifting is not just about building muscle. All right. Weightlifting also has its own effects on the way insulin moves. Remember, you're moving. And another thing that weightlifting does that cardio actually doesn't do is it improves your body's ability to store more glucose in the muscle and the liver. And if you're storing more glucose in the muscle and the liver as glycogen, you're not storing it in the belly. So if I tell you that weightlifting improves your ability to store glucose, excess glucose in other places besides that belly of yours, don't that make you want to go lift weights? I lift weights, I do it a lot. As little as 2 days a week of whole body training is all you need. Free weights, machines, rubber tubing, or even your body weight is all it takes. That's it. That's easy. Give me a fist bump if that's easy. That's easy. If you watch Netflix, you got time to do this, folks. And I'm not here to preach, but I kind of am preaching today. Now, here's my third. Get up and move more. Stand up. Get up. If you're watching this show right now, get up. Stand up. Shake your legs out. I'm standing. I don't have to do it. Stand up and move around. Here's my challenge to you. Stand up and move around for about 5 minutes or so every hour you're awake. You know how much moving that is? Do you know how much moving that is if you actually move around for 5 minutes every hour, even if you had an exercise session? This is especially important if you have a career that involves a lot of sitting. Get up. Give me a fist bump. That's what I'm talking about, Karen. Give me a fist bump if you just stood up. This is what it's all about. Move, move, move. If you are moving, glucose is moving, and you are not getting pre-diabetes, or you're improving it, and you are improving your diabetes, or you're not getting it at all. Now, if you already have diabetes, I want to point out a few things because this does matter for people who have diabetes. Real talk. If you have diabetes, or even if you have pre-diabetes that may seemingly be getting worse, become familiar with your blood sugar and see how it responds to exercise, because some people may initially get a hypoglycemic effect, meaning your blood glucose levels drop too low. Talk to your physician about that even before you start exercise. Be sure to speak with your physician to make sure that it is safe for you, to make sure that you have no circulatory issues that may influence it as well. So know the risk. And I also recommend keeping tabs on your blood sugar more often, before and after exercise. I specifically recommend this because you can see how good you're doing. So if you're watching your blood, we're visual people. We want to see results. Weight loss aside, if you lose just a little weight, you can improve your diabetes. But if you move more, you can improve it even without weight loss. So look and see what happens with that blood sugar over time. What happens with those A1Cs, when you actually exercise. You will be surprised. And when you move, and use those results to see how your body responds to different types of activity. Your body may respond better to weightlifting than walking, or vice versa. That's something you want to do. Yolanda, I'll answer that question about how to check your blood sugar levels daily. I'll get you that answer right after the show because I'm running out a little bit of time, but that is actually a great question. Now, finally, I'd like to say that understanding these patterns, if you have diabetes, will help you understand, again, whether you're going too high or too low, or how exercise is influencing it. So I hope you gleaned some insights from this show, because I got to tell you, folks, moving. And I'm not just talking about that hour exercise session. I'm talking about moving throughout the day. If you're not standing, if you take nothing else away from the show, if you're not standing, if you're if I'm really trying to emphasize is standing and moving. If you're not moving or standing, glucose isn't moving. Remember that as we go into this aging successfully segment. I feel like I dropped the mic on that. I mean, I'm really trying to emphasize that. So let's talk about aging successfully, because again, I told you that diabetes becomes increasingly widespread as we age. Activity is medicine. You hear me? Activity is medicine. It's the fountain of youth when it comes to aging successfully. I want to emphasize that to you. So, the minimum recommendation to reap benefits from physical activity when it comes to pre-diabetes prevention and management, diabetes prevention and management, and really any other health condition that's linked to lifestyle, whether heart disease, various forms of cancer, inflammatory disorders, you got to do at least 150 minutes a week. That equates to about 2.5 to 5 hours of exercise, 150 minutes to 300 minutes. I'm sorry, I didn't give you the cutoff. So that equates to about 2.5 to 5 hours of exercise a week. If you're trying to lose weight or wanting to lose weight, know that you will benefit from doing more. I'm not telling you to go out and do more, but you will. And I'm going to tell you a little trick that really works. If you engage in those exercise sessions, that walking, that jogging, those classes, and then you actually implement my tip of moving every hour for 5 minutes, I guarantee, and weightlifting too, I guarantee you'll see a difference, especially if you're trying to lose weight, because we just don't move enough. Think about that. You're trying to age successfully and you're getting in an hour exercise session and then you're sitting down for the rest of the day. That's not going to get you there. So I want to emphasize that a lot. Think about my mother. My mother's name is Gladys Johnson. Think about Gladys. She has one leg and Gladys moves more than the average person. That's my mom, and I'm proud of her. In spite of it all, she's a busybody, and that's a good thing. Now, if you're unable to meet the minimum recommendation of 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity a week, be as active as your abilities allow. Think about Gladys. Be as active as your abilities allow. Do something. Understand the risks, because there are risks associated with, exercising with diabetes and prediabetes. Again, I mentioned, circulatory issues could be present. You could have mobility limitations. Your weight may be a thing. Understand the risks. Talk to your physician about them, but be confident enough to try it, and be confident enough to try it and change it if it doesn't work. Don't just say, oh, I tried to walk and it didn't work, and so I stopped exercising, because that ain't going to cut it. If you have to sit in a chair and do chair exercises, make it work. Understand the risk, but be diligent and make it work. And in relation to that, choose activities that you actually enjoy and that are appropriate, and gradually, build up within your abilities. If you do this, if you think about all of this, and of course, you protect and, prepare yourself for any risk. And of course, speak with your physician and make sure exercise is safe for you. You're looking to get on a path to aging successfully and countering any potential risk of diabetes and prediabetes. That's the move component. Now, if you bring that healthy eating in there, oh my gosh, you're good to go. And don't mess around and have your mental health intact. You are good to go. No stress belly, none of that. Are you getting what I'm saying? Fist bump, high five, give me something or a wave if you learn something new today. I promise you would learn something new in the promo. I hope you learn something new when it comes to physical activity. And like I said before, I'll get to your questions if I didn't. Let's finish this conversation right now. If you want, especially if you want to know about the eating component, be sure to follow me on all of my social media channels. That's Salad Lady. And my Instagram will be up there. That's salad.lady. That's salad. That's it. That's all, that lady. Make sure you follow me on my social media channels, all of them, for healthy recipe ideas. I'm all about, as that salad lady, whole food nutrition for whole life wellness, and really helping you build your bowl full of wellness with both lifestyle and eating, eating ideas. So make sure you do that, and make sure you follow those challenges I set forth. Please, let's get up every 5 minutes for 5 minutes every hour. Let's get up, let's move, let's stand, let's do what we have to do to keep that glucose moving. I'm hoping you can finish the sentence again for me, because I said it enough. If you are not moving, glucose isn't moving. If you're moving, glucose is. So I will hope you will join me next week as we continue the conversation. Not so much in the lines of diabetes, but we will hop into some meal prep stuff. And we'll talk about, ways to monitor your sugar and your carbohydrate intake and strategies for that, for not just diabetes and pre-diabetes prevention or management, but for overall good health. Thank you so much for joining. Fist bump right back at you. And I'll see you next week. Take care.